Okay. Well, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us today for the MAP call. I'm really excited about this, but first I have to make sure that if anyone feels that they have any conflict of interest, please let it be known. And also that we are operating under the HPD antitrust rule, which basically said this is not a organization or call that can tolerate any kind of collusion or anything like that within built environment industry. So with that out of the way, as I said, I'm very excited about today's call because uh, as we all are involved with many times as manufacturers representatives is where the next version of LEED is going to go. So you're going to hear about what's transpiring with LEED v5. But the exciting news as well is you're going to get to hear, if you haven't already seen one of the presentations on the HPDC's new material health tool suite, I would highly encourage you to participate in one of those presentations. Um, and but I really do, from a manufacturer's perspective, I do think this is going to take HPDs to a whole nother level. And I think that it's going to be another step for the value and the return on investment that all of you manufacturer representatives make to HPDs. So with that little bit of an intro, I will turn it over to Wendy.
Okay, thank you so much, Tim. And I just encourage if you, we have the open mics here, but if you can mute your mic so that any background noise doesn't filter through, that would be awesome. But please feel free if you have a question at any point in time. We really want to hear from you. We want to engage with the questions that you have. And so you can pop one into the chat. Or, if we're not paying attention, please just raise your hand and we will absolutely want to hear your questions and feedback. So let me move right ahead to the member update. And we're really just delighted to be able again to report the continued progress of our organization. As you all know, HPDC is a member organization. We are here to support, first and foremost, the community of members that's come together to support this work. And this work is about advancing material health practice. And that has a purpose. The purpose with which HPDC was founded, and I'm sure for many of us individually, we feel this purpose when we do this work, is how can we, through our efforts, reduce and eliminate these unwanted effects on human and environmental health, and at the same time have great products, high performance, use all the technological advancements. That's where we are focused, is finding those solutions. And as you all know, if many of you on this call have been with us working toward these goals for many years now. And so step one has really been getting our hands around what are the pieces of information that are needed, what are the sources of knowledge that we can build, and where we have arrived at now after quite a number of years of work is something that we envisioned from the beginning. And that is the ability to rapidly get to the point of evaluating this information. So this is what we're going to be talking about are some new tools that we have developed that are going to enable you to do this. And we're so happy, and thank you to every single one of you for all of your work to create these HPDs that are making all of this possible. Without your efforts to create the HPD reports, none of this would be possible. We can have a great method, but if we don't have the information, and working together and the collaborative spirit that everyone here has shown is just fundamental to the success. And what we want to do now is we want to step that up and have more and more success. And really, as Tim alluded to, this next set of tools that we have announced last month is all about how to enable project teams much more easily to find the great work that you're doing with your products. And so we'll get into that, but we have broken through the 13,000 HPDs published level, which is awesome. Today, Corey is going to be talking about the transparency and optimization indicator, which is a very important evolution of simplicity, I'll just say, with all the data. And so I'll not steal his thunder, but that is moving ahead. And we have kind of moved that forward from when we planned that for version 3.0 originally into version 2.3. And I'll comment on that in a moment. The version 3.0 development fundamentally is about unlocking data through having modular, flexible formats for the use and reporting and viewing of HPD data, so that we've had the PDF document, which has served excellent purpose. And we will continue to have fixed formats. It's just they're going to be more flexible. They're going to be more modular, so that people are going to be much more easily able to pinpoint the pieces of information that they need and do the analytics on those that are necessary. And so that's really where you'll see in Mija Marcano's presentation about the Material Health Tool Suite that we're moving our focus onward from just the reporting to now the analytics of all this information. And so these key components of version 3.0 are moving along. We are anticipating that we will get approval of this year through the technical committees, and then we are working on the implementation. One thing I will note is that on our development team, we have invested a lot in these first months of 2024 in updating, upgrading our project management. So as the scope of these applications has grown, so too has the complexity. We have a little larger development team. And so we've really taken a little time out from development to put in place some new project management tools. We have now a dedicated project manager that is just really focused on keeping everything on track. And I think that that's going to bode well for getting these projects done on time and on budget, all really, really important aspects for us. Well, again, the tool suite we announced in May. We've had a really encouraging response. Quite a number of people on the project team side that have been following along as things have evolved and probably are doing some level of work with HPDs. I think primarily what we see right now is exemplified by the lead option 1 credit in material ingredients, where it's about collecting transparency documents, not necessarily evaluating the information on there, but collecting documents that have a certain level of reporting compliance. Our whole effort is about how do we move on from that to actually the optimization work at the project level. So what is that all about? That's about finding products that have optimized for material health. So all the work that you're doing, not just to report the information and have the information, but actually improve the performance and material health of your products. That's where this starts to come into play. And so that's really what this next phase of the tool suite tools are all about. As far as events are concerned, we'll have our next calls in September. You should have these invitations on your calendar. If you don't, let us know. If you have them there, please accept them, because if we have any change, usually they show up, at least on mine, as kind of tentative, and you get on Outlook, you get a little bars or something like that. If you accept that, then if there's any change in those or any updates to those, that will ensure that those go onto your calendar. So that's an important thing to do. If you have an interest in serving on our board of directors, we will have an open call for board members in September. We will again have our symposium. This is going to be a great opportunity to highlight the advancements you've done with the products. You'll be seeing the calls for participation on that coming out in July. That's going to be in October this year. And then we have the Green Build activity in the middle of November. We will have our in-person annual member meeting. And on November 12th, as we normally do on that Tuesday of the week of Green Build, it will be in Philadelphia. And we are still looking for a host venue. So if you do have an office or know of a location in Philadelphia that you think would be a good one to host our annual meeting, please get in touch with me. And I'd love to talk with you about that. Tim mentioned the LEAD v5 project. With regard to the material health aspects of this is something that we have been very involved working with US Green Building Council for quite a number of years. It's a really important, obviously, effort that has been one of the primary drivers of project teams getting involved with material health. And as I mentioned, typically the option 1 credit. So a lot has gone into thinking about how do we make the use of optimized products easier in LEED. And so as we have done for LEED v4.1, we put, and LEED v4, by the way, I mean, the material ingredients credit in the first place was an effort even before HPDC was formalized by some of the key people that brought this initiative together. And so we put this proposal together. We worked closely with the ecosystem participants that you see in the credits. So Cradle to Cradle, ILFI, Green Screen, Green Seal, BIFMA, and so on, all participated in this effort. And Corey's going to talk a little bit more about sort of the core part of that proposal, which was the use of the transparency and optimization indicators. Now, these are harmonized. And so what that means is that no matter which of those ratings and certifications you might be doing, you have a way using data reported on an HPD of calibrating what level those are at. And so of both transparency and optimization. And we selected those because those have been the two primary polls that have been looked at, pretty much by everyone doing this work, and also are reflected in the current LEED material ingredients credit. Now, what's ended up happening is that the USGBC and the MRTAG and so on decided to change the framework a little bit of the credits in the materials resources section. And what they've done is they've combined several credits, one of which is the material ingredients credit, into a larger credit called the material resources credit. And in this credit, they are sort of, imagine those old credits are kind of like columns. And what this is going to do is enable project teams to have a little more flexibility when they're looking at products, to look at the multi-attribute performance of those products. One of those attributes in this is human health or material health, is the same thing. And then also would be circularity and a few other things. And Corey will show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. And so we had put forward this proposal, and some aspects of it are reflected in the draft that came out. And some of you may have commented on that. There is going to be a second public comment period. We're told most likely in September. The USGBC and the MRTAG and so on are still working through all the comments that were received. I believe in the material resources, over 1,500 public comments were received. So it's an area that has a lot of attention in LEED, and one in which we will continue to advocate for material health getting as much credit as possible. So that was one of the other things that we definitely advocated is, as you know, in the current LEED v4.1, there have been 2 points available for material health in the material ingredients credit, and we advocated for more points being available. And the structure of this new credit might enable that to happen. So, we're going to continue to advocate for more credit there, and also for using these harmonized indicators. Perhaps they will show up as a pilot credit or alternate compliance path or something like that. And we're going to continue to work toward that goal. I also want to point out that the data that's coming into HPDs is now starting to be used. This is the first refereed academic paper that at least I'm familiar with that's really fundamentally used data from HPDs to inform the conclusions. This particular paper looked at formaldehyde, and what the goal here was, how can we start to really better understand the link between the presence of a chemical in an enclosed space like a house in this example, and what impacts that might have on exposure and ultimately health outcomes. And so, as those of you who have delved into that area know, it's a complicated one. It's very context dependent. And a lot of things are said that it's very hard to know how to calibrate those. So this is an initial effort. The primary author here worked on a funded research project that we had with Arizona State University, where he's been working on his doctorate. And so I think, you know, that's really encouraging. We want to get the scientific validation of the data that's here, that it's useful, that it's valid, that it has, that it can inform as much as possible human and environmental health outcomes. So this is a first effort in that regard. I also want to let you know about a new feature. Mike Manzi, as you may recall, has become the board chair of HPDC this year, and he's initiated a blog that's going to come out with each one of our newsletters, and we're going to have a new newsletter coming out probably next week now. And you'll see the second one. So those are available on our website. And Mike is someone many of you may know. He's a specifier with Bora Architects. He is in charge of this area for that firm and has been someone pushing on the vanguard of how to use material health data in the selection and specification of products, really from the beginning of these efforts. So take a look at what he has to say. So with that, I'll just pause and see if there's any comments or questions. And if there are none, I'm going to turn it over to Corey to take us through the next part of the presentation.
There we go. My microphone decided not to work there for a second. Okay, let me share my screen. All right. Well, great. So yes, as Wendy alluded to, I'm going to be just diving a little bit deeper into the transparency and optimization indicators. She talked about on LEED side why we're doing this, but there's another reason we're doing this as well. Again, I'm not going to get too far into the LEED requirements here, but from another standpoint, we had feedback from some of our manufacturers asking like, hey, we want to see like where we've been and where we're at now. Like we want to see the progress we've been making. And then also seeing that path forward as well. So I think, you know, with LEED, I think that's probably a huge driver, but also it's a request from, you know, this group that they want to be able to see the roadmap to what good looks like, but also to see the roadmap of where they've been and the great work that they've been doing. So transparency and optimization indicators are the tool to provide that roadmap. And it's a scoring-based system. And the reason it's that is because it provides a kind of like a quantitative number to see you tracking your progress. And all of this has been reviewed by members of the technical subgroups and the technical committee, and then our ecosystem partners as well. So huge collaborative effort around this effort. So this is just not the mock-up that it's going to be, but the whole point of showing this is version 3.0 is taking all of this awesome data that we have in the repository and telling a story. And when we do that, that becomes valuable information to people. And so the whole goal of this is one piece of unlocking that data overall. And we think this is a very important piece of that. But again, this is a small piece of what version 3.0 is going to be altogether, of being able to tell the story behind this massive amount of data that we have, and giving people the ability to take a look at that data and make better and better products. And like I said, we've harmonized with strategic partners, Cradle to Cradle, ILFI, Green Screen, BIFMA, Green Seal. We spent, months and months and months figuring out what's the best terminology that fits everyone. Actually, I think this is some of the most valuable work that came out of it, because we all got on the same sheet of music, I would say. And we discovered very quickly that HPDC, we have a very specific audience. ILFI has a very specific audience, Cradle to Cradle, et cetera, right? We all discovered that together, if we harmonize and push this forward together, then we're going to be able to reach more people, more of the market, because each one of these organizations are hitting a different piece. So if we can harmonize efforts and terminology, then across a built environment, we can continue to push material transparency forward. So I'm going to get into the indicators. We spent a lot of time thinking about the criteria that's in these indicators. So the transparency and optimization indicator, these criteria, we made sure we asked the questions of what are we going to be motivating by having these requirements. So what I want to do is I want to go through each one of these each one of these criteria and just tell you the motivation behind why we're asking for these things. Okay. So the first thing is third-party verification preparation. So this was by far the biggest conversation point. Originally there was only third-party verification or self-reported or self-preparation. And the concern was that we weren't going to be incentivizing third-party verification. And the issue with that is they were afraid that there wouldn't be as great a data quality. And, there's proof, data show that, if you do get your HPD verified, the data is better because you've had it checked by someone else. And we thought that was really important. But we also understood that there's a cost associated with that. And we also found that there's the second section here that's preparation. So long story short, we determined that we wanted there to be a very huge incentive for third-party verification preparation. So verification can score an additional 3 tokens, and preparation can give you an additional 1.5 tokens in the transparency indicator. But we still allow the path of self-reporting, and we think this is important specifically for small businesses that maybe can't afford that extra cost. And we really want to be careful not to exclude small businesses, because I'm going to get on my soapbox. I'm a huge component of small businesses, but they're 16 times more likely to produce a patent. All that means is they're some of the most innovative companies in the world. So we want to make sure that we're including them when we're thinking of these criteria. The next one is inventory type. So really, these different inventory types are all based on the different programs out there. You all get, as long as you're reporting an inventory, you get 1 token. But in this next section, in the disclosure threshold, you can see that the more detailed inventory you have, the more tokens you're going to be able to get. So a basic inventory at 1,000 parts per million or at 100 parts per million isn't going to score as well as a nested inventory at 100 parts per million, right? Because the nested inventories has a deeper detail to it. So again, we're trying to prioritize and incentivize more detailed inventories. Residuals and impurities, here we had to create a generalized criteria because each organization handled it slightly different. But we all agreed that residuals and impurities needed to continue to be a focus, and transparency. It's something that we need to continue to understand more and more of, because the understanding isn't super great in those areas. And so from HPDC side, you have to follow our best practice for residuals and impurities and do that assessment. And we understand that that's not the easiest thing to do right now, but part of version 3.0, we've already come up with a more automated solution to help you in that process through an API connection with Pharos. So we understand that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but we have a solution to make doing this criteria easier and easier to do with better and better data. The next one is public benchmark assessment, an emphasis on the public. So this is the area where you can score the most tokens. And the reason why we wanted to weight this section so much is because having public benchmark assessments makes hazard information more available for more organizations. Think of like the small businesses that maybe can't afford to pay to get one created, right? When it's public, the entire market gets to use this information. So what we're trying to do is really incentivize more public benchmark assessments being available. So then more and more of the content inventory can be assessed with a public benchmark assessment. Last one is the public disclosure of contents. So this is the one area where you can lose tokens, but we're okay with that. We want to make sure that manufacturers can keep certain maybe substances proprietary or undisclosed. And we think that that's fine. We think that's very crucial. It's a very crucial piece of what we do and how we handle things, because we know that the value of your product is within the formulation. So we want to continue to provide the ability to do that. But that's not transparency. So this is the one spot where you can lose the tokens. But if you're reporting over 95% of your inventory and it's identified, then it doesn't negatively affect you. But if you disclose everything, then you can actually score an additional token in this section. So that's transparency. I'm going to move on to optimization. A question that has come up is, why is HPDC focusing on optimization? Why aren't we staying in our quote unquote lane with transparency? And the reason for that is because optimization is the natural next progression, like next section that you would move to from transparency. So if you would have asked us, several years ago about transparency, that would have been like, oh, you're doing transparency? No way, you're reporting what you have in your products? Like, that's crazy. Like, that's no longer the case anymore. So now that transparency is becoming more and more normal, the next step is, okay, we know what's in our products. How can we eliminate those harmful substances, those regrettable substances, and make better products? And we're just defining that as optimization, optimizing those products to remove the bad stuff and make better products with the good stuff, right, at a high level. And that's what this indicator does. So we'll continue to look at verification and preparation. We'll continue to take a look at disclosure threshold. But then what we'll do is we're going to be taking a look at the content and seeing, is there the bad stuff in the content? And there's 3 different tiers. There's the top tier, which is the hardest, is having a BM score, a benchmark score for your content inventory. And then taking a look, are there any LTE1 or BM1 scores? The next one, is there an LT score? And are there any LT1 or BM scores? And then like the on-ramp, so the first, I would say, section here where it's the easiest to score in, but it gives you that good on-ramp, is screening against approved restricted substance lists. And this is what most of our partnering organizations, right? Think of like ILFI with the Declare Red list. That's a lot of what they're doing. So screening against those things, and then having no substances on those RSLs on the HPD or in that product, you can score tokens based on that. So I'm going to come back though to third-party verification preparation. Again, there's a huge incentive on using a third party because we know that data quality goes up. So if you do the math, there's 3 tokens you can get if you do verification in transparency, but there's another 3 tokens you can get in optimization. So that's 6 total tokens. That's 6 out of the 20 available tokens. So it is weighted, like there's a lot of weight to doing this. And again, we do this on purpose because we want to continue to promote the use of third-party verification and preparation. So now I'm going to go into the different tiers. So the top tier would be, I would say, maybe the hardest to achieve would be our benchmark scores. So there's the largest emphasis on the benchmark scores because it's the best hazard data out there that we have. So what we're going to be taking a look at is we're going to be taking a look at your inventory, 50%, 75%, and figuring out how much of that inventory has a BM score. So think of not only, the bad BM scores, but also the good BM scores. How much of the product has a BM score? And so let's say 85% of your product has a BM score. You would fall into this category. You don't quite have 95, but you have more than 75%. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a look at the criteria. Do you have any BM1 or LT1 scores within there? If you do, you don't qualify for this. You score 0. But if you don't, we then take a look at the threshold at which you're disclosing. Let's say you're at 1,000 parts per million and you don't have any third-party verification. You score 3.5 tokens for that product. Another caveat here too is there's not BM scores for some of the special conditions. So that's where if you're defined as screened under the HPD special conditions, then that would also be included in this content inventory percentage. The next one, so the next tier down, that's still very difficult to do and still has a lot of really great data, is if the content inventory has a list translator score. So that'd be those LT scores. So what we'll take a look at is there's only 2 ways to qualify for this one, is if your inventory has over 95% or over 99.9% of the weight content inventory that has a green screen score, but then also, we also include benchmark scores because that's more specific. And then also, or if it's screened via special condition. So if those 3 things add up to over 95% and there's no BM1 or LT1 scores above the threshold, then, and if you're at 1,000 parts per million, no verification, you score 1.4 tokens. Okay. The on-ramp, this one looks like the most complicated, but this is the on-ramp to optimization. So this is the percent of content screened against approved restricted substance lists. And here is where we get a lot of our partnering organizations, right? Like people are probably familiar with seeing like the Red List or Perkins and Will or, C2C list or something like that. That's where, as long as you have over 95% of your inventory or 99.9% of your inventory screened, you can score tokens based on that if none of those substances are on your HPD, for example. As some of you may know, HPD-C, we have what are called additional listings, and we can take into consideration multiple restricted substance lists that our partnering organizations might only look at one, right? So for example, we can take a look at C2C RSL, Perkins and Will. We can take a look at the Living Building Challenge Red List Free. And we did a big deep dive analysis, data analysis on these lists. And we're like, well, are they all screening the same list? If that's the case, then you shouldn't get any additional tokens for that. But we found out that these lists are actually very, very different. And they're screening very different products and very different substances. So we made a decision that like, okay, if you truly have a product that doesn't have any of these additional listings, like it's actually pretty impressive because these lists cover tens of thousands of substances and chemicals. So what you can do is if you have an HPD that has been screened and it doesn't contain materials or substances on any of these lists, so these 3 that we have approved, you can score these tokens. If it comes up on one of them, so maybe it comes up on the C2C RSL, then you can score these ones. I need to finish up here because we're running short on time, but why are we doing this? Why are we doing this earlier than version 3.0? We believe that we can provide a automated solution for LEED, and we want to continue to pursue that. And we believe that if we show a proof of concept, the LEED MR tag said that would open up their eyes and minds to potentially doing this. Either way, if they don't choose to move forward with this, you can see on the screen here, they've given us 3 different tiers that we can, an HPD can score in their multi-attribute scoring system. And we are going to be using these optimization and transparency indicators as those tiers, because we already know that we're going to be motivating manufacturers the correct way towards transparency, towards optimized products, showing what good looks like. So as an organization, we're going to do this, HPDC, but we 100% believe with our ecosystem partners that we've already harmonized with, we know like we can push it forward, but we all realize that LEED is like jet fuel behind this initiative. So we want to get this as part of LEED. So I'm going to end on that, but I just want you all to know that technical committee and TSG members, like this is one thing that we're working on. There's multiple other things that are going on as well. So just have to thank those members, especially the ones that are meeting off of those meetings. Just have to thank you for your continued support. If there's any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat or email me, but I do need to kick it back over to Wendy because we're running short on time and I took more time than I probably should have. So Wendy, I'll kick it back over to you.
Yeah. All right. So that's exciting. And I think this next step, you'll see a common theme in here. And I just want to point out that all that complexity that Corey took you through, sort of the guts of the harmonization scoring matrix, that's all going to be automated in the HPD builder. And so understanding the result, getting that feedback as part of developing your HPD, you'll be able to see that in real time. And that we're going to show you now some other things here in the Material Health Tool Suite, and some of you may already have discovered exist in the HPD Builder. And then we launched the sort of sister products in the HPD Public Repository, as I mentioned earlier, in May. But we've had since last fall in the Builder the HPD pre-checks for a few programs, and we're starting to add more now. And so this is really the next step that goes hand in hand with what Corey talked about. For those who have been following these efforts for the last 10 years, we laid out a framework: reporting, screening, assessment, optimization. And what we have been focused on in HPDC efforts is how do we get our hands around the data? That's the reporting, the inventory part of the question. Screening, what are the relevant things to know about those? That'd be things like green screen and so on. We've talked on the last call about a new one we're adding, Chem Forward, the additional listings that Corey just showed. All of these are ways of screening the information so that we can sort of start to see the significance and assessment. How do I now compare this with that? How do I start to make some decisions? And then based on that, how do I optimize my product? And so HPDs are here to help report, both inform the data to do that and report about the results of that. And we work with these partner programs that have, the scientists and so on available. We want to actually expand the number of participants, the consultants, the ecosystem companies that are there to broaden those capabilities. And that's very much this collaborative effort. And then the HPD is there to report the progress and inform project teams in particular about all the great work that you have accomplished. And so from a standpoint of a manufacturer, this material health tool suite brings together all of these various developments that we've done, from the HPD Open Standard to the HPD Builder, the public repository, and then we've added these new elements with the pre-check, the dashboards, and we are really up-leveling our data partner program. And you're going to be hearing more about that. We're going to be having some more announcements about that in the next couple of months, so that as much of this as possible and as easily as possible can flow through to the product library tools, the workflow tools, and be used easily by project teams. So for manufacturers in the builder, and Mija's going to show you this, you can find, and some of you already may be experimenting with this, various programs. We like the lead pre-check. We've automated the checking of your HPDs against these requirements. It's all optional. You can subscribe to as many or as few of them as you wish. And you also have the opportunity, if you want to, when you publish your HPD, to publish the results of any of those pre-checks alongside your HPD. If you do that, then that result is going to be available in those product libraries and those workflow tools and on the HPD public repository, so that people can see the pre-checks that you've done. And so that's sort of the core of it. I think from the manufacturer perspective, it gives like a one-stop shop for project teams to have all this information documented, to allow us to understand those criteria, automate the checking of it. So you all know the complexity when you're trying to understand what project teams are looking for. How do I know if my products are in alignment with their requirements? This automates those processes. And in addition, adds communication. We're going to be even enhancing that, but allows project teams through the HPD public repository to talk to you and say, hey, I'm looking at your product. And so Mija will also show you that new feature. For manufacturers, the dashboards on the repository can be a great source of helping you research, look at product specific information. You can put a product in and understand, not just see the HPD, which you can do in the repository today, but understand its compliance with different lists, different pre-checks, and so on. And so it's going to, for those, as you're doing your product research, trying to understand what's going on out there a little better, it gives you much more depth and breadth of information than what we've had available in the repository up until now. So with that, I am going to introduce Mija Marcano. I think most of you know Mija. She is our fabulous person who makes things work in the builder and the repository, and just helps translate all of the needs that you have in for our development team. And so Mija, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here and share with you our progress. So as Wendy was covering, we have now integrating these two pieces of functionality, which is the HPD pre-check in the HPD Builder and in the repository, as well as the dashboards in the repo. So I'm going to go right in with the demo, if it allows me to. So when manufacturers are creating HPDs in the builder, they usually go and are able to pre-check their HPDs against LEED. And now there is a section called the program pre-checks. And this will show you the pre-checks that are available. And these pre-checks have been set up working with these organizations. Is a combination of other material ingredients programs or organizations such as Perkins Albino and Bora, and it can also be data set organizations or research organizations that just check HPDs or have HPDs in their criteria for their material health practices. And these programs are set up with two types of data. One is the scope of the HPD. So the organization will tell us, okay, we're looking for products that have HPDs, that have nested inventories or basic, that are reported at 100 or 1000 ppm or both. And then other criteria that is part of the scope of the HPD. So we will add the criteria and we will combine that with hazard screening list. And the organization can provide us with a CSV of cast numbers that they want to filter screen HPDs against, or they can indicate any known hazards list, such as the ones mentioned by Corey, and we can combine those to set up the screening criteria for the program. So each of the programs that the manufacturer sees have the portion of the scope checking and the list screening, and they can learn more about these programs by clicking learn more. Then they will see the information about the organization, about their material health program, what is the scope that is being checked, what are the lists that are being screened against. And if they have any questions, they can reach out to the contact person or click on the website link to learn more about the program. And if they think they would like to see whether the HPD is aligned or not aligned with these requirements, they can subscribe to the pre-check. So let's say I subscribe to all of them and I want to see what are the results. I can check here and then the builder will tell you whether you're aligned or not aligned. We're using the alignment term because we are only checking for HPD criteria, right? So for example, cradle to cradle certification involves way more data and information checking than only the HPD data. So this is where we're using alignment with either partial requirements or full requirements. So here the manufacturer can learn, okay, well, I am aligned with the characterization, the type of inventory, but I have to have my HPD verified in order to align. Or if I pass maybe everything else, then I do have these two chemicals that are in this red list, so I cannot align with these program requirements. And then the same with the other programs, it will inform the manufacturers what are those chemicals and what is that criteria that they're not meeting. These programs are not part of the HPD Open Standards, so they're not going to be printed in the PDF, but the data, the results for the pre-check will be sent down through the repository, to our API partners. So if you would like to share the information of this pre-check with the community, then you just need to remain subscribed and it will be sent down to the repository. So how is this connected to the HPD dashboards? On the other side, when your HPD is published in the HPD repository, then it will be available in the dashboards. And those HPDs that have performed a pre-check will have this designation because the pre-check criteria has been implemented also in the dashboards as filters. So for example, in the BORA dashboard, there is a BORA pre-check, and BORA has two levels. They have required and prefer, and they are checking products that have either 1000 or 100 in the required, that are characterized on a screen. And here you can see better that they are free of GSPI 6 classes, precautionary list, and red list. So we have implemented that criteria as a filter, so BORA can filter HPDs and find those HPDs that align with their requirements. And also they will see a check mark whenever these, in addition to passing the filter, have also been pre-checked. So the manufacturer is aware of this alignment as well. And then on the other way, we can have organizations that would like to find HPDs or they want to check specific chemical content criteria in their products, and they can tell you, okay, we have a program pre-check in the builder. Please go run this pre-check so that we can tell whether you align with my program or not. So this is open really to any organization on the user side that uses HPD data on the day-to-day and or that can benefit from HPD data, or and in the manufacturer, so that you can learn about these programs, about the initiative, about what the users are looking at in HPDs, and how, and also see what changes could you make in order to improve the material health of your product. So just to provide the last bit of information here and open for questions. The process for setting up pre-checks or dashboards, if you want to recommend, because from you, the recommendation can also come from you if you think that an organization that you know may benefit. You just need to contact us and explain us. They need to explain us the material health program, what's the criteria that they looked at, and HPDs, and the screening, the chemical screening. And for the filtering in the dashboards, it can be very specific. We can create filters that are part of the fields of the HPD, but also combination. It can be, I want to filter fluorine products that are free of PVC. That's something we can set up. So it's very, there are a lot of opportunities. And with that, I'm going to stop and open for questions. Thank you. No, it's free. So the first question, what is the cost to subscribe to this? I know the subscription word is kind of, but no, it's free. It's part of the builder. It's just a function, one more functionality in the builder. There is no added cost to it.
So
I
Matt,
see you responded. Yeah.
I know right now when you're in the builder and you go and do the lead pre-check, you can subscribe and then it'll tell you whether or not you're compliant. And then that is actually published on the face of the HPD. With these additional dashboards, if you check it and for some reason your product isn't in compliance, I mean, you can uncheck it before you publish the HPD, correct?
Yes, and it's not printed on the PDF. It's not part of the
Okay.
HPD format. They're just data that will be, but you can always unsubscribe. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just concerned because you said like once you hit the button, it goes somewhere into the repository.
Once you, so if you
Okay.
are subscribed and you
Mhm.
publish the HPD, the result of the screening,
Yeah.
whether you are aligned with Cradle to Cradle or aligned with Perkins and Will,
Mhm.
will go as a data piece down in the repository. So our API partners, such as Sustainable Minds, Mindful
Mhm.
Materials, Ecomitis, will get this information. If they want to
Okay.
use it on their end, they will be able to get this information, yes.
So, but if you're in the builder and you haven't published the HPD and you hit subscribe and you decide I don't want to do it, you can unsubscribe. And once you
Yes.
publish it, won't. Okay, I just
Yes.
wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, you can use it to inform yourself and then unsubscribe.
Okay,
If
thank you.
no problem. Evelyn, do manufacturers have all opt-in? No. They have to opt in. Yes, they have to opt in, and so this is different from the pre-check. So the lead pre-check will, if you align or not align, it will only report in the PDF what is aligned. And if it's not aligned, then it's like if no pre-check was performed. In the case of the program pre-checks, if you remain subscribed, then the information of whether it's aligned or not will be sent regardless.
Yeah, so I think that distinction is really important. The lead pre-check is officially a piece of data in the HPD open standard. And so therefore it is reported on the official HPD report. These additional pre-checks are not reported on the HPD report on the document. But
Yep.
as we just said, we've made it available for the manufacturer, if you wish, And Carol, you had it exactly correct. So if you've used it to inform yourself and you don't want that data to go to the repository, then you just unsubscribe before you publish. If you want that data to be available in the repository, it can be displayed in the repository dashboards, you know, and what we are doing is for manufacturers that have the pre-check, we are making those HPDs show up in a listing. So in the dashboard, if I'm looking, let's say at the Bora pre-check, and that will check HPDs that may or may not have been pre-checked by the manufacturer.
Mhm.
But if you have done the pre-check and you've published those results, then your HPDs would show up at the top of that listing. Because we really want to highlight for project teams, manufacturers who are getting this done and have products, you know, and care and have used this and have products that meet, align with the requirements that those programs are looking for. Okay, so thank you very much, Misha. I'm just going to quickly move ahead here to the final part of this presentation for today, which is just to talk again about the next events that are coming up. We hope you all stay involved. So our next call will be on September 27th. I've already talked about the invites, the board nominations, technical committee nominations. We'd love to have your participation. The technical subgroup open calls come out in the spring, so also keep those in mind. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tim.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Corey and Misha, for your presentations today. One of the things that I would like to add to, you know, from getting to know the tool suite is that this as we see that filtering going, and if somebody is a project team is looking at your product, you will be also notified of that project that they're looking at your product. And I think this is a great thing for manufacturer representatives. The other thing too is that yes, right now you saw just an example of one firm, which was Bora, but with the presentations that have been done so far, because this is new, the presentations that have been done so far have gotten great reception, and we have a lot of firms that now that they've seen the presentation, they saw Bora's site, they want to have their own dashboards too. So you're going to start to see even more dashboards from other firms, and I'd highly recommend, if you haven't seen the presentation, please see it. If you're in LinkedIn and you see the invitation and you have specific end users or architect firms that you work with that you want to see them involved to utilize your HPDs, please, you know, repost those invites to those individuals. So and then, as Wendy stated at the beginning, and I always like to try to state, if you have any feedback whatsoever, you know, things that you want to see in these map calls, please let us know. And the other thing too is because we have the symposium coming up in October, I would highly recommend, if you have any case studies that you want to put forward, please put them forward so that we can, you know, put them out there and let the whole world see the hard work that you guys are doing. And with that, I just want to say thank you and look forward to our next call.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tim and Wendy. Great job.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. Thanks. Bye.